So the first question was if you just told us a bit how you got first into trampolining and how long you've done it for.
Yeah, so I had kind of a weird start with tramps. I didn't most people at this age are in it like competitively and stuff. But I went to rec my whole childhood basically because my mum was actually a coach, but it was all just recreational kids trampoline. Um, and I had hours and hours and hours that I could have been getting coached and getting really, really good at it. And I wasn't that interested. And I would sit in the corner and I would play on my Nintendo DS. And so this is me now wishing I had utilized that time better, but fortunately didn't. But yeah, so I kind of started by going along to these classes with her. I did it a little, but again, it was all just for fun. And then I stopped, as a very high percentage of people do, especially around kind of puberty age, drop out of gymnastics and things like that. Very common drop off point. And then I got back into it at uni. In Freshers Week, my flatmate decided to go back. She'd done it when she was younger, and I was like, "Oh, fantastic! I actually did too." I hadn't planned on it at all. Thought I was going to be in the netball team. Had it all planned out. Didn't get in, obviously. Um, and I was like, "Yeah, yeah, I'll come along. That sounds fun. Why not?" And here we are. So it's been a bit of a hop, skip, and a jump, really, or bounce rather. But yeah, it all started with recreational. And that's, I think, why I'm able to enjoy it so much still now, because I've not had the same kind of competitive upbringing with the sport.
That's good that you eventually found your way back. So I think I'm right that is this your first year as trampoline chair?
Yep, yeah, we've just got one league left, and then we're done our first year.
How's it
But
gone so far?
it's going good. We've had a really good year. We've had just had Sisto, so the Scottish Student Trampoline Open, which was the first time it's been like back since 2020. Um, and it was so nice, like having everyone there. It's totally open, so we had competitors from England, Ireland, all over Scotland as well. Loads of alumni coming back. So it was really, really nice having everyone like back together again. Um, but yeah, it was a long weekend, so we're kind of recovering and getting started already for our next league. But yeah, everything's gone really well. It's the first year we've introduced disability, so that's been our kind of big step, and we've changed some of our levels around as well. It's all been going really good. Yeah, it's been a nice kind of recovery year.
Yeah, I was reading up about it. It looked like a massive event. I think, was it 24 institutions were there or something?
Yeah, we had a lot. We had a lot of like people kind of they know it's like a tradition. They come back for it. A lot of alumni still getting involved, coming back for Sisto. And we had, I think it was about 360, 370 competitors just in our individual, not including all of our other categories. So that was really nice.
So you said, was this the first year for introducing disability?
Yeah, so we know British Gymnastics had kind of started it. It has been running, and this was the first year we also included it in our first league competition back in October, and we continued it for Sisto for our first open disability category. So we had to kind of, set all the rules for that, how we were going to do it, and we were just so thrilled that people signed up for it. We were so excited that people wanted to be involved and wanted to promote that more, because it's such a great sport. It really is so accessible, and there's so many different ways you can access it. So it's really nice to have people actually competing in it as well. We're really, really proud of that.
Yeah, that's such a nice thing, I think, to get people involved in, because obviously I think inclusivity is important to you. So I think about that. Could you explain more about what being non-binary means to you?
Yeah, so I came out as non-binary um, a few years ago. I can't remember an exact date, but I don't really identify with male or female. I'm just me. I'm just myself. I don't feel like I align much. Obviously, gender is a big spectrum, and there's lots of different places that people can find themselves on that. Um, But yeah, as a non-binary person, I just don't feel the same like link to gender. And yeah, I use kind of gender neutral language, and my pronouns are they, them. And yeah, I'm just Holly is fine, just to be referred to as well. So yeah, I've had a pretty good time with it. Everyone's been great. And it's funny kind of speaking on it in sport. It's not, it's not something I think too much about. It's just me, like I'm just existing as myself. Um, but it's still nice to be speaking on that because it takes some people a very long time to realize that they can do that as well. And to notice that they aren't as happy how they are identifying originally and stuff.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, because I think what you were saying about how can you in sport, because you were obviously Glasgow University's first non-binary club captain. So was that something that was important to you, or just something that happened?
Yeah, I think, well, it's funny. My kind of like coming out was kind of tied into it all in a way, which is just a weird kind of happening. But I was social secretary in my first year, and then in second year I was club sec, and you get like access to an email, and I was an ally, and I wanted us we were all going to put our pronouns in our email sign offs, and I typed in Hollie Fullerton, um, GUTC club secretary, and then I went to put my pronouns in, and I was like, huh, have I spelt these wrong? I was looking at it for like a while. It's like that's that just looks like it's wrong, and it was like this weird little click in my head, and I realized that I would much rather not be called she or her, and that I actually preferred gender neutral pronouns of they and them. And I was like, it was like this little like snowball suddenly kind of realizing all the pieces kind of fitting together. I'd known I was queer for a really long time. I've been out like openly for a long time, and I just never realized that I had these feelings about gender as well until then. So it was quite a funny moment. But yeah, so I came out to we had like our like exec committee. So it was myself and our captain and treasurer. We were really, really close. And it was during COVID as well. So we were like trying to first figure out life at the time together. And they were like some of the first people I came out to as well. And they were so great, so kind about it. And I think that's the nice thing about sport is there are like in these institutions, it's such a safe space because people are like they have to be nice about it. We've all done our diversity training. We're all like clued up, and we have to be. But yeah, so I came out to them, and then the next year going into it as captain, I hadn't even really thought about it to be honest. And then one of like our older members committee was like, do you know, I think you might. I don't think anyone's done that before. I think you might be the first person to have been like openly or presently non-binary as a captain. Again, just me, just existing. But yeah, so we got in touch with GUSA, our sports association, and they were like, "Whoa, yeah, I think you are." So yeah, I did a little interview with the Guardian, the Glasgow Guardian, not the Guardian, but just as good. And one of the girls, Claire, did that. It was really great, really nice kind of promotion for the club and for kind of GUSA to be seen as inclusive as it felt to me. So that was really nice.
Would you encourage any other LGBTQ plus members and just students as a whole to get involved in student sport clubs? And just if you have any reasons why, or
Yeah, absolutely. I know a big well, yes, just straight up yes, absolutely. But I know a really big kind of unfortunate statistic is a lot of people who identify as LGBTQ plus, or if it's okay, I personally I would just use queer generally. But a lot of queer people struggle with their mental health. There's a lot of statistics, like very worrying statistics, to show how prevalent that is of an issue, especially with trans people as well. It's even worse, and it's really like quite scary things to look at. But we also know that sport improves mental health and well-being, improves your physical fitness, but other than that, you're also getting socializing every week. on a regular basis. I think it's great for anyone's mental health. But if queer people also might be more likely to struggle, it's even more important that they do that. Also, I think people can often feel really isolated when they maybe feel a bit different in any way at all, really. And that's not just because you're queer, it could be for any reason, as well as things like disabilities, or maybe you're from somewhere and there's not a lot of people who are from there where you are now. I think the socialization that you get from university or just any kind of sport team is absolutely invaluable. You're seeing the same people on a regular basis. You could build friendships in and outside of the sport. I think as well, it kind of forces you to communicate a little bit. If you're a bit apprehensive and you're kind of, oh, well, now you're on a team, so you have something you have to talk about, it's so much easier to then follow that later with real conversation. And I think a lot of friendships come from them. I know I, like, personally, through my sports team, have made total friends for life. My flatmates are both in the team. I met my partner through the sport as well. Too many things, to be honest. But yeah, I just think it's such an invaluable way to meet people, and even of different ages as well. Like, other than meeting people through your course, you get to meet people who are maybe in later years at uni, and they can give you great advice. And yeah, it's been such a welcoming space. And I think if someone is nervous to join, knowing that there are measures in place to ensure your well-being is such a comfort. Like, for, I know Glasgow have it, but I think most universities now, all sports teams have to have a mandated well-being officer or a welfare person. That's kind of their whole job, is to make sure everyone's getting on okay, and that if you have any problems, you can go straight to them. And there's whole hierarchies of who things can be reported to if there are any problems. Not that there will be, but if there are any, I think it's nice to know that in the worst case scenario, you're going to be okay and it will get sorted.
Yeah, definitely knowing that it's a safe space. Because that kind of covers my next question, which was about if people are nervous. But yeah, good answer. You got it all. Um, so next was, I'm aware some universities have gendered clubs, for example, a men's hockey team and a female hockey team. So do you have any thoughts about the gendering of student sport clubs when it's being played at a recreational level?
Yeah, I think I might be a bit controversial, but I think when it's rec, if it doesn't, I think it's important to ask, the why behind things. Like, does it really have to be? Does it really make a difference? Like, to speak on trampoline, which is what I know the most about, we all train together. Like, yes, at competition, it is separated, but we all train together. We all socialize together. We all support each other. And I think, for example, something like Ultimate Frisbee, they have mixed teams because why not? Like, if it's just for fun, I know and I appreciate that at a certain level, and we're talking like Olympic, Commonwealth level, like, bodies can start to make a big impact on your ability in sport. That's absolutely fair enough. But at rec level, which is what we're all performing at university generally, if you can make it for everyone, why not? Like, why not make things, if it's just for fun? And I do get something like at Glasgow, the hockey teams are huge. So they're going to have to split them in some way. If it has to be like that, it makes sense. But I think if there can be mixed rec, I think there absolutely should be, especially in non-contact sports. Why wouldn't you? It can just be so fun. And I know, like, some, again, I can only speak for Glasgow, but I know they do offer some kind of big rec events. Like, they do like a rec extravaganza, and it's just basketball for everyone of any level, of any age, ability, and gender identity. And I think that is nice to have those opportunities as well. I appreciate that these clubs are very historical, and it's going to be a long kind of fight to make things fully accessible for everybody. But little things like that, I think, are good steps towards full inclusivity later on in the line. But yeah, that's my kind of takeaway: is if it can be, why not? If they can all enjoy it together, they absolutely should be able to.
Definitely. So that, I guess, kind of goes into my next question, which was what steps would you like to be seen taken next? But I guess you kind of covered that with the whole, if it can be for everyone. Would you say that's the main one, or
Yeah, I think just looking at like what the real difference is that it could make and measuring up if being inclusive outweighs a marginal difference in competitive level. Like, for example, we this year had trans people competing, and uh, especially in our lower levels of trampoline, there is absolutely no difference what category you're in. The categories could all be mixed. It wouldn't make any difference. It's just a way for us to be able to hand out more medals, to be honest. Um, and so we allowed people to compete in whichever category they felt most comfortable and that most aligned with their identity and their presentation. We're absolutely fine with that. Because especially again for trampoline, at our levels, it's done on like a set difficulty you need to meet, and there's like a set kind of list of moves you have to do in your routine, and they're the same for men's and women's categories. So it doesn't actually matter. It's the same expectation for everyone. So I think it would be, yeah, really good for clubs to ask themselves, like, the kind of I been argument. It's I been like that. So that's just how it is. Kind of looking at, does it really need to stay like that? Could we change it? Could we make it more inclusive? If it means like more people would be able to join and get involved, why not all train together? Or split things based on like level, have kind of a lower rec and a higher rec if that's that, if it needs to be split in some way. Yeah, I think I think there's a lot of movement that clubs could start to take, but it's very sport specific. And I appreciate I'm not an expert on all of them. I just want more people to be included.
great. Well, final question. Um, is there anything else Scottish student sport could do to promote inclusivity?
I mean, honestly, in our sport, I think everyone's been great. We've had absolutely no issues with that. I think looking at the multifaceted nature of inclusivity and how we're not just being inclusive in one area. Because I know it's been very easy for us this year. We focused on like, oh, we've included disability and how great are we? But also making sure that we're being inclusive in other areas. And like, for example, British Gymnastics recently changed their rules. So we were able to implement gender neutral kit, but we were also able to implement people now wearing like religious headwear in competition, which was previously against the rules, which is insane. But thankfully, that's now changed, and we've changed that as well. So we had the first time we've seen people kind of competing in hijab, and it's been so nice to have like all these different areas being fully included. And I think just kind of starting to question why we have the rules we have, and if we like, even if they've been very long standing, even if it's I've been like, what could we actually start going, do we really need this? Does it really matter? Does it make much of a difference if we maybe don't separate these things by gender, or like we're trying to step away from things like we used to have a little award of like Mr. and Mrs. SST for like kind of big names in trampoline, and going, does it need to be a male and a female? It doesn't really matter. Can we rename this? Can we rework it to be more inclusive to everybody? But looking at all the different areas in which we might be have these biases or kind of long-standing practice that we didn't realize were discriminatory, but might be like later down the line. I think just being kind of open-minded and flexible is the main thing. It's like going, does it really matter? Can we maybe just let people do what makes them most comfortable? Yeah, then it's fine. Yeah, I think starting to promote, especially in the rec sport, big kind of mixed groups is definitely a really big one. And I think that's something most sports could. They do have rec teams, but I think across the board could kind of start promoting having them be mixed, and yeah, everyone kind of just playing together and having a good time.
Well, thank you so much. You gave great answers.